Hello everyone. This week's Parsha is Parashat Mishpatim. This Shabbat, we're going to take out 3 Sifrei Torah. It will be Parashat Hashavua, Parashat Mishpatim, and then we're going to read Rosh Chodesh, because today is also Rosh Chodesh. Tonight, Shabbat will be Rosh Chodesh. And also on top of it, it's Parashat Shkalim. So the third Sefer Torah, we read Parashat Shkalim, and Haftarah also will be Parashat Shkalim. It's a special parsha. It's something that we read every time before Rosh Chodesh. This year Rosh Chodesh fell on Shabbat, so we read on Rosh Chodesh. It's about half a shekel that every Jew should give to the Bet HaMikdash. But nowadays we just give it to the shul, we give it to the yeshiva, we give it to the Torah institutions. Half a shekel means the worth of 9 grams of pure silver. Worth of 9 grams of pure silver. So this year it's around $8. So we should try to give this right before Purim, right before reading of the Megillah. The minhag is to give right before the Megillah. So should try to give as from starting today, or starting today until Purim for 2 weeks. We should try to give that half a shekel for us and for our family members. Now, so this week's parsha, Parashat Mishpatim, it talks about, right in the beginning, it talks about a slave. What kind of slave? A Jew who became a slave. Now, he became a slave because he stole. Let's say he stole, and he cannot pay back. So what this person, he is sold. He is sold, and they take the money and then they give it to the person who the person stole from. So he is sold for how long? For 6 years. Until the 7th year comes, or until the Yovel year comes, and then he goes out free. But let's say after 6 years, the man says, I like my master, I want to become a slave. I want to continue being a slave. So what do we do to him? We take him, and the Torah says they take his ear and they pierce his ear by the doorpost. Okay, and he becomes a slave until the Yovel year, until the year of Yovel, the 50th year. So whenever that 50th year comes, until that year, he will be a slave. Now, some people think, so why do we drill his ear? Why is his ear drilled? So the Gemara in Kiddushin explains, and he says the ear that hurt on Har Sinai, that Hashem said, when Hashem said on Har Sinai, Avadaihem, they are my servants. And this man, he went and he chose for himself a different servant. So for that, his ear is pierced. So that ear that hurt will be pierced. So one of the commentators asks, he says, why don't we pierce his ear from the beginning? Because he was a slave for 6 years. He was a slave for 6 years. So why don't we pierce his ear right away? So the commentaries answer, they say that in the beginning, he did not choose to become a slave. He was forced to become a slave. He stole, and he couldn't pay back, and therefore he was sold, and so he didn't choose to become a slave. But now he has opportunity to leave his master, and he still chooses to become a slave. It means that he has that problem. He has this problem that he did not hear, meaning he heard in Har Sinai that he has to be a slave to Hashem, and he chooses to become a slave to a human being, which means he has this problem, and therefore we have to pierce his ear. Sfat Emet, one of the big commentaries, he asks a question. He says, why do we pierce an ear? Why not a brain? Or why not a heart? Why? Because the message, meaning he chooses to become, okay, he chooses with his brain. So he chooses with his brain to become a slave. So maybe you should pierce his brain or pierce his heart, because his heart desired to become a slave, to continue being a slave. So, and the ear is only a tool. Yeah, the ear is the tool. It's only a receptor of information. But the brain is the decider, or the heart is the decider, but not the ear. So why do we pierce the ear? Now, Sfat Emet answers. He says like this: the problem is really in the ear. Why? Because Hashem's message never reached the brain. It stayed in the ear. That ear that heard Hashem's message, he heard that you are my slave. Yeah, that message stayed in the ear and never it remained in the ear. The man, he heard Hashem, in Har Sinai. Everybody heard Hashem. Our neshamas also were in Har Sinai. So we heard Hashem, but it never reached the brain. It always stayed in the ear. Which means, what does it mean? It means like this: the message never reached the brain. The message stayed in the ear. It never reached the brain. So he never really gave too much consideration that he is Hashem's slave. But really, he doesn't look at Hashem as his master, and therefore he decided to choose a different master for himself, because that message stayed in his ear but never reached the brain. Therefore, we try to fix the problem. The problem is the ear. The ear is the problem. Now, okay, so that's the Dvar Torah. Now, how do we, what lesson do we learn from this in our lives? Many times, many people have problems in their lives. They have problems, personal problems. They have their own character problems. They have some type of addictions. It's their personal problem. Now they know that it's a problem. They know the solution. Okay, but however, it does not penetrate the brain. It stays in the ear. They know the problem, they know the solution, they know what to do, they hear all the information, everything, but it does not penetrate the brain. Yeah, and they don't see it as personal reality. They don't see that I could fix it. They don't associate it together with their life. They don't see that this solution will help them. Many people, they look at their lives as a movie, as a TV show. For example, a person, he watches, let's say, he watches a movie, or he watches a show, he watches something. So he sees it, but he watches it as a spectator. He knows he can't do nothing. He knows the problem, he knows the solution, but he can't do nothing. So sometimes some people, they see their life, they look at it as a spectator. They see it as, I know the problem, I know the solution, but I can't do nothing. But this is wrong. A person, he's living. Yeah, he's not a spectator, he's living, which means you have the power to change yourself. You have the power to fix yourself. Yeah, you know the problem, you know the solution, now act on it. You have the power. A person has to understand this. He has to put it inside. He has to drill it in his brain that I have the power. I have the power to fix myself. I have a power to change myself. It's all in my hands. Shabbat Shalom.